What's happening, everybody? It's Christopher with Lone Wolf DIY. Thanks so much for stopping by to check out the channel. I love seeing your guys' face. I know you have a bunch of other stuff you could be watching, but you came by to check me out, and I really appreciate that, everybody. Thank you. But what I'm doing today is I'm doing a comparison between the G4 Bullet and the G4 Pro. I've had both cameras, and they both look great, but I've never done a side-by-side. So thanks, everybody, for checking out the channel. Well, let's check out these cameras. Now, all the research that I've done here are things that I feel are going to benefit me with this camera equipment in real life scenarios and the actual things I need them for. So the G4 Bullet here is $199 for one camera, and for a 3-pack, it's $590. The G4 Pro right here is $449 for one, and for a 3-pack, it's $1,339. I've been using both of these cameras, and if you're using them to catch somebody in the act, and then hopefully you can call out law enforcement and bust them. I've given them evidence from both cameras, and both times they did nothing. Now, the G4 Bullet has 24 FPS max, and the G4 Pro has 50 FPS max. So both cameras are constructed of aluminum alloy. However, the G4 Bullet here does have some plastic components. But I've had this camera on a south-facing wall for almost a year now, and I have had no issues with the plastic or any of that stuff whatsoever. It did burn the logo off of there, but that's to be expected when you have such high heat here in the desert, which perfectly segues into the next specification, which is the weatherproofing rating. So in these ratings, you've got IP, which stands for Ingress Protection, and then the first number that you have, or letter in this case, is going to tell you your solid resistances, like sand and dust. And then your second number is going to tell you your liquid resistances. When it comes to solids, X means that the manufacturer found that rating to be irrelevant, or 0 through 6, 6 being the best. So if we had a dust and sand rating of an IP6, that would mean it's 100% sand or dust or solid proof. Now the second number is the liquids, and you've got a rating between 0 and 8, 8 being 100% liquid proof. So the G4 Bullet over here is an IPX4. Ingress protection doesn't matter, irrelevant for the solids and dust, and water protection of a 4. So essentially half, 50% water resistant. And the G4 Pro here has an ingress protection of a 67. So a 6, that's the highest rating on our solids, so it's 100% sealed from sand and dust, and it scores a 7 out of 8 for the liquid protection. So that's really, really good. And I will say that even though this says X for solid sand and that kind of thing, I have had this camera on a south-facing wall for almost a year now and have had no issues with dust. I live in the desert, dust storms all the time. Surprised I haven't gotten valley fever yet, so I haven't had any real-world experience issues with dust contaminants or any of that stuff. They both have night vision. Now, one pretty big difference between the two is that the G4 Bullet does not have zoom. The G4 Pro, however, has a 3-time optical zoom, which can come in very handy because if you've got a camera way up on the ceiling and let's say you want to zoom in on a specific area, you wouldn't be able to do that with the Bullet. You would have to place the Bullet close enough so that you can get the camera field of view that you're looking for. That's pretty much it. Those are the things that I found to be the most important specifications or factors in my decision between both of these cameras. With that being said, I think the G4 Bullet is perfectly fine. I do like the G4 Pro. It's really, really great. However, for the price difference and what I need it for, I am perfectly fine with using the G4 Bullet. Whenever you are trying to record a higher frame per second, this being 24 frames per second and this being 50 frames per second, you are going to use a lot more of your hard drive space. But these external hard drives anymore are so big that it's not really even an issue. Same thing goes with the recording quality, the resolution. So we have 1440 on that, and then we've got 4K on that. You can switch this back and forth between 4K and 1080p. So this camera typically needs quite a bit more storage if you're gonna record in 4K as opposed to the 1440 over here. I prefer to just record in the stock regular setting. The camera picture is really, really good. I don't feel a need to overkill with the 4K. The view angle between these two is not a big enough difference for me. The aluminum alloy, as I said before, the G4 Bullet has stood up perfectly well against 115 degrees and tons of dust. Not to mention monsoons. If you check out my YouTube videos, I had my laundry room roof almost ripped off from a microburst. No issues with the camera, worked perfectly fine. As a matter of fact, I used the footage that I recorded of the microburst to share with the insurance company because they didn't believe me. Now, the frames per second is quite a big difference. You know, I'm used to playing video games in the 90s at like 4 frames per second. So to me, 24 is quite the improvement. So the 50 is going to give you a much smoother picture. 24 is perfectly smooth for me. I can see everything I need to see. I can pause the detail if I really want to see something in specific. If you're trying to record something going really fast, the 50 frames per second is what you're doing. But if you're in a building or a parking lot or something like that, 24 frames per second is plenty fast enough to watch people walk around or whatever in the office. Now, the weatherproofing is definitely a factor. Once again, I have beat the crap out of the G4 Bullet and have had no issues whatsoever. But as you saw from the Ingress Protection rating, this camera beats that camera out quite a bit. So, I mean, not to beat a dead horse here, but 115 degrees, dust storms, monsoon microbursts. This thing needs a better Ingress Protection rating because I have, like, in real life beat the crap out of this. And the only things that I've had happen are the sun have pretty much completely burned off the Ubiquiti U on the side, and some of the plastic here has started to yellow. But if you have any plastic in high heat, it will turn yellow. It always does. And one extra thing I wanted to point out was I was switching out cameras just to try to get an idea of my field of view and that sort of thing. So I just spun this camera off and I tried to spin the G4 Pro onto this one. These mounts are not compatible. They don't match up the same. I learned that walking up the ladder an extra 2 times. I need the exercise anyway. I don't want to bitch about. I had to walk up the ladder 2 more times. Sometimes I want to kick my own ass. Okay, so we got our G4 Pro here and our G4 Bullet right here, and we are ready to do some testing. So I'm just going to do a quick walk by and see what the benefits are between each camera. So I just wanted to show a real quick example of what 30 FPS with a 1080p resolution looks like. And this is 4K 60 FPS. So on the iPhone 13, you've got 1080p HD or your 4K resolution that you can record in. I think that 1080p looks pretty sweet. And on your UDM Pro with your G4 Bullet, you are able to actually get 1440. All right, so we got both the cameras up and loading with their stock out of the box settings. Now, I did notice that on the G4 Pro that the 24 FPS could be adjusted by adjusting the slide for the higher frame rate quality. And you can do the same thing on the Bullet. So on the Bullet, I found out that you have a max FPS of 48. And on the G4 Pro, you've got a max of 50. So it's really not that different if you're wanting to get that kind of a frame rate quality. So I'm gonna do some testing. I'm gonna move around like my cat's doing right here and kind of get an idea if the investment is worth it for the G4 Pro. All right, so I did a bunch of running around like an idiot, and just right off the bat, I like the G4 Bullet picture better than the G4 Pro. I haven't done any kind of adjustments or anything. This is right out of the box. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna change that high frame rate mode on both cameras and see what we got with that. Okay, there we go. So our G4 Bullet has a frame per second of 48, and let's double check the G4 Pro. 50 FPS. So there's only a 2 FPS difference, and our G4 Pro is recording in its standard resolution and the G4 Bullet is recording in its standard resolution. So let's see how big the difference is. Now this is something that the Bullet cannot do. It's this zoom in feature, and this is not even in 4K. And you can see how good that looks. And on top of that, you can even zoom in even farther than that and still have great detail. Look at that, all zoomed in, all crazy. You can pretty much see everything. I wonder if you guys can see what I'm looking at on my phone. Can you get that close? So as I was saying before, if you have something that you want to record that you need to zoom in, but you want your camera way up out of the way, then that G4 Pro is the way to go. Picture quality is much better. That frame rate is really, really nice. The G4 Pro is definitely where it's at if you want to get the highest quality picture possible. But if you don't need all those bells and whistles and you need something that's perfectly comparable and works perfectly well, I mean, that camera was top of the line when it first came out. I would go for the G4 Bullet just because I like the cost of it and it looks really, really good and it fits exactly what I need. Kiki, stop it. You're gonna ruin my wiring job. So if you're like me and you're just looking for something you can plug and play and just be done with it, you don't have to do any back-end stuff or adjust any settings, Ubiquity's networking equipment is excellent for that. It is extremely DIY and user-friendly, and all the resources you need are online, whether it be my channel, Lone Wolf on YouTube, or you go to Ubiquity's website and they've got everything you need there. Plus, if you buy their equipment, there's a code on there you can scan and it takes you right to their quick step installation guide. It's really convenient and it's really done well. If you guys would like and subscribe and hit that notification thing in the corner, I'm gonna be heading up to Oregon and it's really exciting. I'm pretty nervous about the whole thing. I've lived in Tucson for 20 years and it's quite a big difference. And to be honest with you, I'm pretty sad about leaving the house. I put a lot of work into it. It was pretty much an abandoned lot when I moved in here. Everything you've seen here, I've done myself. And yeah, you put in that kind of heart into something just to leave. It's kind of a bummer, you know? But just like anything else in life, there's when one door closes, another one opens. And I'm looking forward to a whole new journey in another state. I've kind of been there and done that here in Tucson. I've gone everywhere you can go. I'm done sweating my ass off in the summer and I'm ready for a change. So thanks everybody for stopping by. I love your support. I love seeing you here as always. And please like and subscribe. Hit that notification thing in the corner. That helps me out an awful lot. And we got a real big build coming up in Oregon that I hope you'll join me for. We're gonna be doing a tiny house. We're gonna be doing an awesome Ubiquity deployment and it's gonna be great. I've never built a house before. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a learning experience for me as well. And I hope I can bring you along for the ride. So thanks everybody for checking out the channel and have a nice day. Did you see me almost die right there, Jim? Scripted. Thank God for my skateboarding skills from way back in the day. Teach me how to not fall on my ass. Just kidding.